Emma Raducanu walked into that final carrying hope, momentum, and a stadium that almost felt like home. And less than an hour later, she was staring at a scoreboard that didn't just say she lost, it screamed that she was never really in it. That's the uncomfortable part no one wants to say out loud, but we have to, because this wasn't just a routine defeat. It was a reality check wrapped in a fairy tale setting. And the reaction from someone who knows exactly what it takes to build a champion makes this story way bigger than one bad afternoon. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this loss might actually be one of the most important matches of Raducanu's career, and why a former coach of Andy Murray believes the scoreboard doesn't tell the whole story. Everything about the occasion felt right. First final since that unbelievable U.S. Open title run years ago. A week of solid wins. A crowd in Romania embracing her like one of their own because of her family roots. The script was almost too perfect, which in tennis usually means reality is about to punch holes straight through it. Sorana Cirstea clearly didn't read the emotional storyline. She came out swinging like this was personal, like she wanted to remind everyone that this was her house, her crowd, her moment. From the very first games, the pace, the timing, the aggression were all tilted in one direction, and Raducanu was the one scrambling just to stay in rallies. When a set disappears 6-0, it's not just about tactics. It's about control, confidence, and emotional balance. Cirstea had all three. Raducanu looked like she was trying to solve a puzzle where every piece kept changing shape. Balls that sat up got punished. Defensive shots landed short. First serves didn't give her free points. And when you don't get cheap points against an opponent redlining in front of a home crowd, you start every rally already behind. But here's where it gets interesting, and where the outside reaction adds layers to what we watched. Miles Maclagan, a man who helped guide Andy Murray through some of the most demanding years of his career, looked at this match and didn't just shrug it off as a blowout. He saw context. He saw a body and mind that had just been through a brutal week. That semi-final took a lot out of Raducanu. Long rallies, emotional swings, physical stress. You could see it in small moments in the final. A split step, just half a second late. A chase that didn't quite reach full speed. A recovery step that wasn't as explosive as it had been earlier in the tournament. At this level, those tiny delays turn into big scorelines. Maclagan pointed out that there were small windows where Raducanu could have made it uncomfortable. Early in the second set, she actually steadied things. She got back to 2-2. The rallies lengthened. The crowd got a little quieter. For a brief stretch, you could almost imagine the momentum tilting. Then came a key game that felt like a fork in the road. Raducanu had chances to apply scoreboard pressure, to make Cirstea think, to drag a match into something messy and tense. Instead, the Romanian held firm, landed first serves, ripped a couple forehands, and slammed the door. From there, the air just seemed to leak out of Raducanu's resistance. And this is where fans get divided. Some people see a scoreline like 6-0, 6-2, and immediately jump to big, dramatic conclusions. She's not tough enough. She can't handle finals. She's the same player who shocked the world once, but can't back it up. Those takes are loud, emotional, and honestly way too simple. Maclagan's view was more measured, and that's why it matters. He didn't deny that it was one-sided. He didn't pretend Raducanu was at her best. But he also didn't frame it as some fatal flaw in her game or mentality. He talked about accumulation, matches in the bank, trusting your body again after years of stop-start injuries and constant coaching changes. That's the part casual fans forget. Since her breakout, Raducanu hasn't had the boring, steady months that build resilience. She's had surgeries, niggles, withdrawals, new teams, new systems, resets over and over. You don't build deep match toughness in the physio room. You build it by playing week after week. Even when you're tired, even when your level dips. This final, ugly as it looked, is actually proof of progress. You can't lose a final if you're not reaching finals. You can't test your body in back-to-back high-pressure matches if you're going out in the first round. That's the strange paradox here. The scoreline hurts, but the path to it matters more. Still, we shouldn't sugarcoat what happened on court. Cirstea exposed how fragile rhythm can be when you're under physical and emotional load. Raducanu's serve lost sting as the match went on. Her depth dropped. Short balls invited punishment, And when she did try to inject pace, errors crept in because her legs weren't fully under her. This wasn't just about tactics like hitting more cross-court or slicing more backhands. It was about energy management, something the top players master over years. Knowing when to push, when to reset, when to buy time between points. Cirstea looked like a veteran protecting a lead. Raducanu looked like someone still learning how to survive on days when the tank isn't full. After the match, her speech said a lot without getting technical. She thanked the fans. She apologized for not bringing her best. She congratulated Cirstea with genuine warmth. You could hear the mix of disappointment and gratitude in her voice. She knows how rare these chances have been for her lately. There was also a line that stood out. She mentioned how long it had been since she'd given a speech like that. That tells you everything. Finals haven't been normal for her. They've been distant memories from a teenage miracle run. Just being back on that stage, even in defeat, is a step her career desperately needed. Now here's the big question, and it's one I want you to really think about. Would you rather see Raducanu lose heavily in a final, or keep having respectable, early exits that protect the ego but don't move a needle? Because development at this level is rarely pretty. It's usually uncomfortable, public, and full of scorelines you wish you could hide. Maclagan's comments underline that the goal right now isn't perfection. It's continuity. Stacking tournaments. Letting her body adapt to the grind again. Rebuilding trust in her movement, her endurance, her decision-making late in matches. Those things don't come back because you want them to. They come back because you've lived through enough matches to believe they're still there. And yes, there's still the elephant in the room. Expectations. Every time Raducanu plays a big match, the shadow of that U.S. Open title looms. People still talk about her as if she should either be contending for majors or she's failing. That's not how careers usually work, especially after injuries and upheaval. What we saw in Cluj was a player who was closer to being a consistent tour competitor, again, than she was a year ago, but not yet ready to impose herself physically against an inspired opponent at the end of a draining week. That's not a headline people love, but it's a realistic snapshot. Cirstea deserves huge credit too, and we shouldn't let the Raducanu angle erase that. Playing a final at home brings its own pressure. Instead of tightening up, she elevated. She played first strike tennis, took time away, and never let the crowd's energy turn into nerves. That's experience meeting opportunity, and she nailed it. For Raducanu, this match is now a reference point. Her team can look at the physical drop-off, the patterns that broke down, the moments where she couldn't quite sustain intensity. That's useful data. Way more useful than a tight loss where everything blurs together emotionally. Here's the curiosity gap that makes this story fascinating going forward. What happens if she stays healthy for the next 6 months? Not brilliant every week. Just available. Just competing. Because if this version of Raducanu, not at full power, can still put together a run to a final, what does a fully conditioned, rhythm-filled version look like? That's where the optimism creeps in, even on a day that ended 6-0, 6-2. Tennis careers aren't defined by their worst scorelines. They're defined by how players respond to them. Do they retreat into safe scheduling and protect rankings? Or do they keep stepping into tough draws, risking more bruises in exchange for growth? From everything we've seen in her interviews and on-court demeanor this week, Raducanu seems to understand the bigger picture. She didn't hide. She didn't make excuses publicly. She stood there, faced the crowd, and owned the moment. That kind of maturity doesn't fix a forehand overnight, but it builds the mindset you need when results wobble. So when you hear that a former coach of Andy Murray is preaching patience and perspective, it's not just polite commentary. It's coming from someone who's seen the long, messy process behind building a durable top player. Murray didn't become a multiple slam champion because every week looked perfect. He got there through setbacks, physical battles, and plenty of painful losses. Raducanu is nowhere near that stage yet, but this is part of the same messy blueprint. The trick now is what happens next. Smart scheduling, recovery, then back into competition before the rust settles again. Because momentum in tennis isn't just about winning. It's about staying in the arena long enough for your level to stabilize. Let me know what you think, and be honest. Is this heavy final loss a warning sign that Raducanu's ceiling is lower than we thought? Or is it a necessary step in rebuilding a career that's been stuck in stop-start mode for years. Tennis IQ is where we don't just react to score lines. We dig into the stories, the turning points, and the hidden details that shape the future of the tour. Stick with us for more deep dives, real talk, and the moments that actually matter in tennis.